All right, Marriage Pursuit. We are here with our second podcast, and today I'm excited to connect with Alicia McKenzie, who right now is living, working, dating, and doing her life in Sweden. She is a native uh, Californian, right? Or she's headed back to California in a few months, and we are excited to introduce her ministry, Refining Hope, aimed at women, and she'll tell you a lot more about that. And we'll talk to her, of course, about her relationship past and her relationship present and her relationship future. And together we will celebrate the grace and the hope and the excitement that God has for us in the area of male and female relationships. So I'm so glad to have connected with you, Alicia, over Instagram. We found each other, and now we're doing this podcast. So give us a little broad intro of yourself.
Well, first of all, I have to say that Swedish people don't date.
Please,
so I actually,
I know. I'm sorry. I said
so
that a little bit optimistically, but you did tell me in our pre-roll conversation that you had a male Christian friend who you have some interest in over last night. So by a technical definition, that was a date.
right. In American terms, it was a date, but in
Okay.
Sweden, girls and guys can be friends, and it doesn't mean anything. So
Although it
so
very
it
well may have meant something to the man you're talking with. Even if he sort of acts or says that it didn't. I mean, he could have been playing video games or gambling last night, and he was spending time with you.
right. Yeah, I am a fish out of water in Sweden, and I have no idea. I really have no idea what anything means. I'm just kind of at this point in my life trying to run after Jesus and see who's running alongside. And I think at the moment I just need to run after Jesus.
Okay, okay.
I think,
Yeah, yeah. Are you healing? I mean, how you tell us a little bit about your relationship backstory. I know you told me you're 35. Though you look like you're in your 20s, I thought over the
thanks.
internet. And so, tell us a little bit about what relationally has happened to you in the past few years, and how that's intersected with your relationship with Christ.
Yeah, well, I grew up in La Mirada, which is by Biola University in a suburb of Los Angeles,
Oh yes.
California.
Okay. Okay.
I grew up with amazing parents and my sister who loves the Lord. I grew up in the church,
Nice.
but I grew up very much as a cultural Christian. And it was in the 80s and the 90s. And I think, back then there was a lot of pressure um, to fulfill a role, that your role in life was to be a mom and to be married. And somehow along the lines, finding your purpose was lost,
Mm.
or it was never really so important to find as it was to fulfill this societal role.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
And that, I think, combined with watching romantic comedies um, and reading Jane Austen novels
Oh yeah.
growing up, you just have this expectation, especially at Biola. You hear things like Ring by Spring and Bridal Institute of Los Angeles, that
Mm.
you feel so much pressure to be married because it
Okay.
almost is like a projected emphasis of your
Mm.
identity
Mhm.
as a
Mhm.
Christian woman is to
Mhm.
be married and to be a mom.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Those
And
are good things, but somehow at times in certain Christian communities that it can just feel overwhelming or overpowering, and obviously the Lord has different timing in different people's lives, and so I can see where that there's a healthiness there, but it can be sort of hurtful and difficult at times.
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
for me, I was a really insecure kid. I was bullied a lot growing up. I was really shy, so I didn't have a lot of confidence. And I think being a cultural Christian for me, I think it's so easy to just do the motions, go to church, have Christian friends. We
Mm.
kind of create this bubble around us
Mhm.
that we actually kind of lose our relationship with the Lord, or we
Okay.
never find it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was very true.
Wow.
Um, when when I was in my late 20s, I started thinking there's something wrong with me because I'm not married.
Yeah.
and and I think, in Sweden it's not like that. In Sweden it's perfectly normal to be single and to
Yes.
have male friends or uh, those kind of relationships. And but in America it's not. And so everyone's like, every wedding you go to or every social event, it's like, so when are you getting married,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
when's it your turn?
Yeah.
And they're not asking, hey, what are you doing for the Lord? How are you serving in your purpose?
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So there, so you really felt like um, you weren't given a good deal of coaching or mentoring in the area of putting your unique skills and gifts to work in a way that transcended relationship. Yeah, and interesting. I mean, it definitely sounds like you grew up in a very conservative bubble like Christian community as you described, because my experience was a little different and maybe in a more secular, broad environment in the suburbs of Houston. And then I came to know the Lord when I was 14 through a youth group, and that was a very powerful thing. And I did have some great influences. When I was single in my 20s in Houston, I was in a Christian group, but there were a lot of people who were not married in their late 20s and 30s, and I was friends with a lot of those people. So um, interesting, because anyway, and people are getting married later in the United States. Last I've looked, the average age
I
is
have hope.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the average age of first marriage is 29 female and 28 male, and of course, in the secular culture, there's sort of like you might be seeing in Europe. There are a lot of people who are foregoing marriage, essentially cohabitating or doing other forms of relationships. So
Yeah.
so you describe yourself as a cultural Christian up to that point. When did you truly give your heart and life to the Lord?
Actually, that was after my divorce,
Okay.
which
Wow.
is so weird. I mean, I grew up in it was a pretty conservative church. The
Yeah.
background was Quaker, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like super conservative, but it was.
Yeah.
And I thought I was broken. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought, am I ugly? Am I not good enough? Like, why can't someone just love me enough to want to marry me? And I was so seeking that in a guy instead of seeking that in Christ.
Hmm.
And when I was 27, I've always loved missions trips. I've always loved traveling. So
Hmm.
I went to England to do 6 months abroad teaching, and I met my ex-husband.
Okay. Is
Uh,
he a U.S. citizen or a British citizen?
no, he's half Swedish and half English.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I think in England there's that pressure too to be married to a certain kind of Christian wife and
Oh,
have a
okay.
family. And
So he came from a Christian background, and he.
yes,
Okay.
and I think I we dated in England for 3 months, and
Mm.
then I remember the first time we went out for coffee, I had to convince him to date me.
Oh, okay.
And that was kind of the problem. But I think,
Was he who asked who to coffee, or what was who was sort
ooh,
of providing the
um,
initiative in the beginning, the very very beginning?
in the very beginning, he and his friends liked me and they asked for my number, but I was like, I'm never giving them the time of day. and
Okay.
and just slowly over time, I was like, oh, I guess he's nice. And then slowly over time, I mean, it happened quite quickly. We were only dating 3 months. I just asked him for coffee and I said, do you want to like go out? What do you think of this? Um, and from the very beginning, he said, I see you like a sister. And
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I kind of should have taken it from there. But I so had this craving to be loved and accepted because I didn't
Sure.
really have that growing up.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like I said, instead of finding that in Christ, I was looking for that in a relationship.
Hmm.
And I think before you can be in a marriage, you need to be a whole person first.
Hmm.
Um, and Rick Warren often says, you need to find your purpose before your person. And
Hmm.
those were things because I didn't really know the Lord before I was married.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that because I was just cultural Christian.
Yeah.
Um, and then we dated for 3 months, and I went back to LA, and we met maybe 4 or 5 times long distance, and then we got married.
Okay. Okay.
So it was very quick, and we didn't know each other.
Wow.
Um, and
Yeah.
my family didn't tell me not to do it. My mom and dad, my sister, my best friend, all strong Christians, were like, "This is not the guy for you."
And why was it? Did they have some sense of his character from meeting him? Or did they think you needed more time? I mean, what was their main rationale for advising against marrying?
Um, I think they could see that, although he was a nice Christian
Uh-huh.
guy,
He really was a believer. I mean, that was
he
or is.
I feel like I can never judge someone's
Yeah,
salvation.
I know what you mean, and I sort of pull back from doing that. But
Yeah.
he had a conversion testimony. He was living a, a spirit-filled life. I mean, was that a reality? I mean,
I mean, I can't. He was a Christian and he went to church,
mhm.
and he was baptized, and we were both Christians, but I don't know that I can say exactly what a spirit-filled life looks for one person might look
Yeah,
different for another. I'm really outgoing and he was really mellow.
yeah.
Um,
So maybe he
but
had a
I
hard time expressing his, the inner
relationship
of
with
his
God.
heart. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which is it can be quite normal for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Um,
I think my family realized that I was willing to sacrifice everything to move
mhm,
my life to England.
mhm.
And although he said, "Oh, if it's hard for you, maybe we can move back to LA," I think my family knew that he wouldn't do that.
Oh,
I
okay,
think
yeah.
they could see that that was something he just couldn't do for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for them, he wasn't a bad guy. They just could see that he wasn't willing to sacrifice enough
Mm,
for me before we were married. And I
yeah.
think they kind of were like, no, this isn't the right guy, because the right guy will do anything to be with you.
Interesting. How did you get from having coffee initially? It sounds very casually, and he said he saw you like a sister, I guess, and um, what transpired to sort of move you guys to a place where it sounds like he was fairly driven to motivate you, and then I mean, sorry, to
To
marry
get into the
you.
relationship. Yeah. Well,
I mean, something happened.
I think there was a lot of pressure from his side. I remember after we had talked that night, he was like, "I'm going to call my sister and see what she says." And then I think his sister almost like convinced him to date me, and was like, "Yeah, maybe we'll have a wedding in California."
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think that's another thing, being an American in a different country, is you're unique and exotic and different,
Mm,
and so it sounds cool or
yeah.
whatever.
There may have been a
And
X factor there, or you.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. X factors are good
yeah,
things, and
X Factors are good things.
yeah.
Um, and I remember I had sent him, when I was in LA, a text to say like I wanted to break up with him, and I think I knew deep down in my spirit that that was the right thing to
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
But I couldn't. I sent him another text like a few hours later, like, "No, never mind, we can still be together." And I
Mm,
think it was more of the fear of not trusting God that He would provide
mm,
the person for me. I had such a big fear that if I didn't get married then and there, that I would be alone the rest of my life.
mm. Yeah. Well, that's certainly an understandable fear, and we've all experienced that to a degree. And sometimes we forget there are hundreds of thousands of potential candidates out there for us, and I know there were times in my dating career where I thought, this person is the only person that will work, and it was such a comforting thought. I feel like the Lord would bring in later and say, there's so many people out here. You just sort of have to have a faith in the plethora of fish that God has populated in His sea, and so well, so you got married, and how long did it? How long were you married? I mean, how long?
I was married for 6 years,
Okay.
so it wasn't a short amount of time.
No children.
No, I had 3 miscarriages,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to
and
hear that.
the first time I told him I was pregnant, he was angry,
Wow. Okay.
and the reaction was an angry person stomping off and leaving.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, did you had
Um,
obviously I'm sure you talked about your desire to have children. Did he seem? I mean, did he agree to that
yeah, and you don't think
path
you're gonna have a
initially?
hard time. You think life is gonna be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I found out later was that he was angry because he wasn't really sure that he wanted to be with me.
No, okay, yeah.
And I think he felt a lot of pressure from a person in my family, and I think he felt a lot of pressure from his family to marry me.
Okay, yeah.
And and I think it was me being wanting to be married for filling a void, lack of loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing who I was in Christ, and
Mm-hmm.
he was being married because although he might have felt that that was the thing God wanted him to do, he also said he felt a lot of pressure.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Hmm. Family pressure or interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, how did you um, how did your relationship end and you know formally divorce?
Well, let me tell you, as a Christian, a
Yeah.
cultural Christian, even not having this, living spiritual relationship with Christ, because I
Mm-hmm.
did not find that until after my
Mm-hmm.
divorce. I think you never think you're going to get divorced.
Mm.
Like I will say, for every Christian who's been divorced, who's going through a hard time, you never think it's going to happen to you. You
Mm-hmm.
never think that.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was, we're kind of taught this Christian identity of the woman and the man, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the man to be the financial provider,
Mm-hmm.
the woman to have the kids and stay at home. Um, for my ex-husband, it was hard for him to keep a consistent job at times in our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
which put pressure on things. But I think really for me, the thing was although we were both Christians,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was not the center in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
There, there was no reading the Bible together. There wasn't much praying together, seeking the Lord. Um, those were things that just weren't there. And I think I also went through IVF,
Mm-hmm.
and they put me on double the strength hormone shots without telling me they were
Wow.
double the strength hormones
Yes.
shots. And I think that put a lot of pressure on things, and I don't want to say anything bad about him personally, but when
Mm-hmm.
someone feels pressured to be married to you, they can end up resenting you. And if
Mm-hmm.
they end up resenting you, there can be things that are unhealthy, where there can be control issues that are unhealthy for you, or words that are said that are unhealthy for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yes, I can see where resentment can breed all sorts of negative behaviors and actions, and a
and
pattern that's yeah, yeah. I'm
and
I'm
I don't
sorry.
want to get too personal, but I can say that it makes it made the marriage very difficult.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It sapped. Sounds like it sapped a lot of the joy and pleasure out, and made it a sort of a gloomy and difficult uh, arrangement. And so I can see where that would set the course of the marriage on a on the path to divorce.
I think too, living in a foreign country and not having any family
Mm,
support around us
mm,
was also really difficult.
mm.
And also for me, I can't speak about his relationship with the Lord, but I know for mine, I didn't know who Jesus was.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the thing that the nail, the hammer that hit the nail on the head really was after having all those hormone shots, the doctors told me, you should have 8 to 12 eggs,
Mm,
and I had one.
wow. Yeah.
And I remember, and I will be the woman at the well. I will be the guilty woman. I felt so much guilt because I went home and I said I need to take a break,
Hmm.
and
So
I
you
went to
told.
go live with one of my friends.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Yeah. And so you moved out first, essentially.
I moved out first, and I was so burnt out emotionally from control issues from lack of feeling loved, from lack of just Christ in the marriage. That I think you can be in a marriage that is a culturally Christian marriage without having a living relationship with the Lord.
Yeah. I mean, millions of people would fall into that category as we speak. There are many women, men and women who are, have some understanding or connection to the Christian faith and tradition, but don't have an active personal life, personal relationship with Christ, and therefore don't have the Holy Spirit living within them and guiding their hearts and minds, or at least doing war with their flesh. So, yeah, that must be very hard. So, what did it look like when you fully and finally began your relationship with Christ after your divorce?
Well, that night or that day, and I'll probably get a bit emotional, but I remember I was in the countryside and I was so broken. I was just so broken. I never felt so broken in my life, and I just threw myself on the floor and I just started sobbing and I couldn't stop, and I just said, God, I'm not strong enough. Like, I can't do it. Like, I'm just not strong enough. And I heard Jesus say, that's why I gave you the cross. I gave you the cross because I knew that you couldn't do it in your own strength, because I knew that you couldn't be strong enough. And that's when I really heard Jesus for the first time in my life. And that's where I feel like I truly accepted Christ for the first time in my life.
Wow.
Because he's all that I had. I had no family. I had lost my culture. I had a suitcase of clothes. Like, I had nothing. The only thing that I had was Jesus.
This was the night that you moved out?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's really a powerful moment. I can only imagine all that transpired there. You said in the countryside, in a park or something in Sweden?
I was at my friend's. I was staying in her old house, which is probably like 200 years old. And
oh, wow.
And
it has land around it or something, so you're out in creation and
wow.
Yeah. Wow, that's very powerful. So it's really something to hear, and it's good for all of us to be reminded, and anyone watching, that coming to the Lord is something that happens individually with us, individually and specifically between us and the Lord, and it really can't be programmed or forced or mandated by any family or group. I mean, you'd had so much exposure. I mean, in your upbringing and at a school like Biola and all, I mean, it's sort of staggering to realize that it wasn't until you'd been this far in your journey and you'd experienced some.
It took losing everything for me to really find a relationship with Christ. And I was going through the motions. I was doing the Christian things growing up.
Wow.
But I did not have that personal relationship with Christ. I didn't understand surrender. I didn't understand redemption. I didn't understand grace because I never needed it before.
You stayed out of trouble in the traditional sense, I guess, when you were younger.
Oh yeah, I was the perfect quote unquote Christian kid.
Yeah.
But I didn't know Jesus.
You did. Wow, that's interesting. Yes. Wow. Well, that's fascinating. So obviously your life story and the threads and that the Lord has woven has inspired you to start a ministry, start you writing and connecting and sharing your message through Refining Hope. When did that begin?
Well, that was kind of weird because I had never tried writing before. It was never anything that I thought about. And when God puts a call in your life, He puts a call in your life. Like, you just don't know.
Sounds like you were a big reader, though. You referenced Jane Austen, and you teach English and know a foreign language. So you obviously had a lot of education embedded in you.
I do, and ironically, I'm an English teacher, but I never pursued writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, my best friend Jen, she said, "Why don't you use your pain and your experience to help other women? Why don't you start a blog? Why don't you start writing?"
Mm,
And I was like, I had so much guilt after my divorce,
hmm
so much guilt that I just kind of was like, no, God can't use me.
hmm
I'm a sinner. Like, I have the scarlet D on my back. Like, there's no way that God wants to use me. I'm broken.
hmm
And then she's like, well, why don't you just write an article and send it, to a magazine? And I was like, okay. So I sent a couple articles to an online Christian magazine,
mm,
and I was walking across the bridge in my town, and I've never heard the Lord so clearly in my life. And he said, Alicia, I choose you.
mm,
You're going to reach thousands of people for my name.
wow.
And I literally looked up at the sky and said out loud, no, God, you don't
Wow.
want to use me. I'm broken.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Wow.
he said, I choose you.
Wow.
And it was the weirdest thing because it was like, God was like, too bad. Like, I chose you. And I
Mhm.
couldn't get out of it. And I was like, this is so weird. And
Wow.
2 days later, I found out my first article was published.
Wow. That's amazing. And your
And that,
that interaction sounds a little reminiscent of the Apostle Paul's calling, and where he's told that he's going to be reaching a multitude of Gentiles, and you. Interesting. Wow. You.
and it was like 4 or 5 articles that week
Wow.
in different online magazines.
Oh wow. What are some of these publications?
One of the one is Christian Women's Magazine, and the other one is The Praying Woman.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I'm familiar with that.
so I humbly say that there have been thousands of women that have read
Wow.
my heart
Wow.
for the Lord.
Interesting. So you've gotten to have some interaction with some of these readers and community members.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am so humbled. I get messages from women from the Philippines, from Africa,
Wow.
in the States. I had a teenage girl message me last week asking, what's the difference between knowing your will and God's will?
Wow.
And I'm really humbled because I came from such a broken place
Mm-hmm.
that I never thought that God could use
Mm.
someone who was broken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Interesting. Yes. Why? It's sort of interesting that we think that, because obviously Scripture is filled with examples of broken and very wayward, obstinate type people who are often, the quote unquote heroes of the faith, and are used in mighty and big ways. And but well, I'm glad. How do you feel now? I mean, have you reached a level of comfort with, I'm saying, not a pride, but have you reached a level where you know who you are, you're forgiven, you're healed and washed clean, and have every right to, step into your purpose as you like,
Yeah, I think
you have that
so.
confidence now, like this
I
is,
do.
I mean, God is using me. This is happening. I'm podcasting with people in Texas. I'm writing, and do you have any plans for, or have you written a book or a compilation of?
Yeah, I'm writing a book right now, a book about grace. And
Okay.
I think my heart is really for anyone, or especially any woman who feels like, oh man, I messed up, or I got divorced, or I had sex before marriage, or even an abortion, or something that they might feel so shameful they want to hide, and they might feel like, how can God give me grace? How can God love me? I've just completely done this horrible thing, or I'm an outcast. I think sometimes as a divorcee who's been a Christian, you feel like an outcast. You walk into church feeling like you have the scarlet D on your back. Who's gonna want to date a divorcee? You have a past.
Interesting. Yeah.
And my heart is really that when we truly ask God for forgiveness, when we repent, because we have to repent, we have to acknowledge our sin, we have to say that it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In my divorce, there was a time for reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
As a Christian, that's what you're supposed to do. And 6 months, 5 months after the divorce papers were signed, he was already engaged.
Okay. Yeah.
So the time for that was gone, but I think there's a point where you have to accept the grace of God after you have sought repentance.
Yeah.
And you have to move forward in your life because Satan will tell you everything.
Hmm.
No, you can't be used. No, you're broken.
Hmm.
No, this or that, because he doesn't want you to be used for God's kingdom.
Hmm.
And there's a point where you have to say, I accept the grace that God has given me. I've repented. I
Hmm.
am a new person.
Yeah.
And that's the point where God can use you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yes.
my heart is of grace, and I want to
Yeah.
write a book about grace.
Wow. Well, good. I hope you do. That's a wonderful thing. And your articles could actually be the framework, so to speak. I mean, you could sort of blog or write articles on your way to a book. And I know a lot of people who've done that. It's interesting because I've spent so much time with people in the 20s, 30s, and 40s who a significant number of whom have been married before, and I can say there are Christian communities where there isn't much of a stigma for people who have been married before, as long as they have, fully reconciled themselves to the situation they were involved in and the role they played, and if as long as they've offered that up to the Lord, and either begun a relationship with Christ for the first time, or rebounded and really reconnected with the Lord after. Um, I've seen those people have great success in meeting new people, starting new relationships with an increased level of maturity and wisdom. And so there are a multitude of people who, even in our parents' generation, who were married sort of early in their life, and you almost wouldn't even know that unless you get to know them, and because they've been married to
Yeah.
their spouse now for 30 years and have children, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
But I've seen so many amazing outcomes. It's a little ironic that sometimes, as we know, many people struggle with purity before they're married. I mean, that was the
Yeah,
family statement
I
of the year.
waited.
One family
I'm
statement of the year. Okay, yeah. And so you waited, and
I
you're in a
did.
very you're in a slim minority of people, even among Bible believing Christians.
Oh, and I
And
will wait again until I'm married. I will not give that up. I am
that
very
that is
passionate about the purity thing. That's really important.
that is wonderful, and I love that. I'm I advocate that as well because um, being impure, I feel like thwarts, obviously it dishonors God, and then it thwarts the marriage process, and it leads to all kinds of side streets and detours. And um, I just find it interesting that there's so many people who have sinned sexually outside of marriage, prior to marriage, and
Mm.
somehow someone who gets married might and then is divorced might feel like they're worse than this other category over here. And I see the two the same. They're basically
Yeah,
people
sin
who
is
have
sin.
people
Mm.
who have sinned. So anyway,
Yeah.
I just hope you know the majority of people that you meet, your past is really no different than their past. It's just
Yeah.
you entered into a marriage, and now that brought you. I mean, you started a life together with somebody, and that ended. And I know that's painful, but the great thing is you have a lot of opportunity to to translate all the wisdom that you've learned, obviously, into your next dating process. And so I'm excited for you. Hopefully,
I'm
I'll
scared.
be
I
I'll
haven't
be
been
able
on a
to.
date in this country.
Uh, I think I, you know, and you were talking about in the beginning. You were talking about how you were desiring to be loved and cherished and be married and all of those things as a younger person, but you hadn't found your identity in Christ, and obviously that can be a very difficult thing, and that could
Mm.
very well have played a part in maybe marrying someone that in hindsight you maybe shouldn't have, or it's so hard to analyze from hindsight. But what I like to encourage people is, as we press in to the Lord, I know as I grew in my faith with the Lord, I became more serious about getting married. Um,
Yeah.
when
Mm.
I was less, when I was younger, and I had a period of rebellion in my early, late teens, early 20s. As a believer, as I became a Christian, I was 14. where I was drinking alcohol and kind of, wandering into the party life that's so typical of American college scene. I wasn't thinking about marriage at all. But once I got more serious, I learned to channel my relational and sexual desires toward marriage in a pure and kind of driven way. And that it did take me several years of walking in that pattern of living to eventually meet my wife, Jennifer. But I remember there was sort of an increasing level of intensity maybe I had towards marriage. And at first I had a little bit of what I would call a hyper-Christian idea that pursuing marriage was just bad at all, and we should sort of like push down our relational or sexual desire just to try to completely minimize it altogether, because it led to bad things, right? Or sin and hurtful. It'd been manipulated by the enemy in the past. But eventually the Lord really helped me to see that I should make it a large focus of my time and energy to find my wife. And I was involved in ministry, and I kept that alive, well, whether I was pursuing someone or not. And I loved what I was doing and the people I was working with, and I was in seminary at the time and the things I was learning. But I even had a seminary professor who said, you need to essentially pencil in time to find a wife. Basically caught me saying, I don't have time to do my studies, and I don't have time to find a wife. And he was basically saying, well, you're doing too much ministry. If that's keeping you from not having any vestige of your own self. And because there was a point where I was almost doing something every night with our singles group and worship services, and these were all wonderful things. But he is extremely wise and a erudite individual, and he basically said, you need to block time out. And so early in 2007, I slowed down a little bit what I was doing ministry wise and kept a few nights a week free, and I actually created a calendar category. It was orange, and I called it Marriage Pursuit. And so,
that's awesome.
I started just thinking about, okay, who would I? And I was surrounded by a lot of people. I was very blessed.
Right.
There was no shortage of quality Christian girls to at least, kind of get to know a little bit better, investigate. And
I can't say that in my little town.
No, I know it's hard. I mean, of course, the internet is filled with a lot of people, and now that can also be dangerous too. But when you go back to California, I have a feeling that this whole new season will unfold for you, and so it sounds like you're ready, and you've got this purpose now. You've got this relationship with Christ that's established, and you're okay no matter what happens, but you're free to pursue this desire that He's placed in your heart. I really had to learn that there's nothing wrong or selfish about pursuing a marriage relationship. And in fact, I really felt like the Lord was saying to me, hey, I have daughters, and I'm designated you and other men in your in your generation to care for them, and so and for them to in turn care for you also. And so it really, I even met a few fathers of my peers who very much desired their daughters to be married so they would be quote unquote taken care of. And I realized the Lord had that heart for His daughters, and that I had a responsibility, if you will, to let my inner heart desires and my physicality drive me towards marriage, and it really did. And I mean, it was good when I met Jennifer, and I was, we had a great 5 months of dating, and I proposed to her, and then 8 months of dating, and then I proposed to her. But that's from meeting. From meeting, 8 months later, we were engaged. 5 months after that, we were married. And then a month or two into our marriage, we were pregnant. And now a decade's gone by, and we have 6 children. So, it's been an amazing journey. And it was fun because she and I both had relationship baggage, and we were open about that, and we expressed a commitment to only date for the purpose of exploring marriage and to be pure in doing that, and to keep the Lord at the center. She continued going to the church she was at until we got engaged, and so she continued in groups that she was in. We kind of kept a lot of
your life,
the big pieces of our life, but we made time 2-3 nights a week to spend time together. And so I cut out other elements, if that makes sense. I did my core stuff and my but I wasn't playing in extra basketball leagues and hanging out with my guys extra because I was pursuing her for that season, and it was a really wonderful time.
Yeah.
So,
and I think you're really right about being intentional about pursuing someone. Because I think in Sweden it is different, and you develop relationships through friendships, but you shouldn't have an expectation, because obviously things should just happen naturally through friendship. In a way, it's a good.
You mean, are you talking about the Swedish model, or?
Yeah, the Swedish model it's been hard because they don't really date, and a Swedish guy wouldn't come up and say, I want to pursue you for marriage. You would just be friends and then see what happens.
At what point? Somebody's got to say something to move from we're just friends talking in groups to where we're physically attracted to each other, we're talking about getting married. I feel like for you and your situation, and for women all over America in the 20s and 30s, there are some key conversations that can be had. I love people being casual in the sense and kind of calm and at peace with who they are, and interacting and just getting to know people, but kind of having that mission in their mind and in their heart. And once a guy, says, hey, let's hang out, or are you coming to the dance next week, or, starts to kind of invite you or try to round you up into a circle, there's a few key things you can say, like, are you interested in getting to know me better? I mean, it may be just a little tougher word than pursue me, but I had experience with women doing that, and I thought it really was a sound thing to do, because sometimes they would head off a guy who was just very immature and and so you would just kind of back off. And there are times when a woman can kind of call out the man that's inside of a guy who's before you and say, I'm enjoying talking to you. Maybe you're a coffee, or I'm enjoying talking to you. It seems like you have a lot of great qualities in God. I see that you're dedicated in your studies. I see that you're successful in building your career. I see that you're committed to your family or your family of origin. Are you interested in pursuing me? And again, something like that, maybe in a little more socially savvy language, can really help move things along, because I know that was a part of my growth. I stopped asking out girls that I knew I really wasn't going to marry. I just started getting a lot more strategic. I started having more direct conversations, and I really appreciated that when girls would do that with me. I remember a girl one time who kind of minorly dated a few years before, and we'd gotten out of touch, and I ended up calling her up and kind of tracking her down just because I was kind of interested in her. And again, we hadn't spoken a few years or seen each other at this point. And one of the first things she said was, "Are you calling to see if I'm available?"
Because we
that's
know.
Exactly what I am doing.
Because guys orbit.
Right.
Guys orbit. They want to see what else is out there, and then they'll. Okay, I tried the pool of women, and actually, that didn't work out with them, or they weren't who I thought they were. So then they want to come back and see if we're still
available,
around.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes. I think that was, and I really appreciated her doing that. I mean, she was so blunt in that conversation. And bottom line was she was basically saving me a bunch of time and chatting and maybe asking her out, because she was in a strong relationship with somebody who she's now married to. And I just thought it was cool, and I had no problem admitting, yes, I am calling to see if you're available, you know. And so I think having a little bit of an edge, but still being very encouraging, and even encouraging those guys who aren't ready and who are circling around and say, you know, you've got a lot of great characteristics. I know the Lord's working in you. You know, I'm going to pray for you to find your wife when it's, you know, and so I do think there's an immaturity that permeates a lot of men, and that is a part of my message. And so there are things women can do to sort of call the men up to stand up and say, you know, I look forward to you pursuing a wife. And what's happened in the Christian culture is there's been a lot of complacency and the desire for purity, maybe, or, you know, the pressure has driven some people into just no action. And it's like, hey, it's good to desire to be pure, but we don't succeed if we're men are in one corner and women are in the other corner. You know, the goal is to enter into a relationship, walk through the gauntlet in purity, and then, you know, arrive at the altar and begin a marital life together. And that's what the enemy is trying so hard to thwart, and that's what we've got, you know, that's what we've got to believe in. And and, you know, it's funny, there's so much talk about same-sex marriage and lots of interesting, you know, marriage-related topics. And of course, Christians speak out on those issues, but Christians need to get married themselves oftentimes.
Yeah,
and,
I know. I think,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, well, what's the most powerful thing we can do in this moment? I mean, write a long article about how wrong same-sex marriage is, or which people even know in their heart.
Of, you know, Christ
just
in
be
the
a
church.
picture of a Christ in the church. And I mean, there's a place for both of those things, but the reality for a lot of us in our generation is, hey, if we're in a marriage, let's make it great and lasting. And if we're not yet married, let's be hopeful for that. Let's enjoy our relationship with the Lord every step of the way, every day, and enjoy this mystical journey or quest. You know, I feel like men have this awesome quest, or single men before them, and sometimes I'm jealous in a way, because I'm like, there's just something awesome about that particular time in your life, and I don't want them to miss it, and I don't want, you know, and it saddens me to encounter, you know, quality Christian, attractive women like yourself who are, you know, waiting or been disappointed, and et cetera, because I know so many. These are the people that I know and write for in Houston, and so.
Yeah, you can put an ad out for me.
Listen, you're gonna have no trouble. You're gonna meet people, and you're gonna let people know, yes, I'm interested in getting married again, and you can be open about your past without you know, depreciating yourself. You know, you have extreme ultimate value, and I think those are the people that I've seen be the most successful. They're truly settled and confident in who they are, you know, almost to the edge of maybe being prideful or arrogant, but they're right there at that point, and they know they've got something to offer, and they're willing to give to another person. They're willing to sacrifice. They're willing to filter out some of the cultural, you know, secular ideas. They don't have to date a supermodel looking guy or get whatever. They're looking for the heart, and those people can do wonderfully well because people in your new social environment will start to connect you with other people, and I think you'll find almost like a shocking round two. You're like, well, why didn't this happen when I was 21? But you're in your mid-30s, you're going to get dates and opportunities. I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but I mean, you're going to get people who are, you know, people like myself or my wife. If we were to meet you, if we were in California, we'd be like, hey, you need to meet our friend.
I laugh because the town I'm in is so small that just doesn't.
Well, I'm talking ahead into California. I'm talking.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. You're in a big.
It's scary. I haven't dated for like 8 years. Like, I don't even know what dating is. I feel so culturally different because I lived abroad for so long.
I can see that. But again,
You know?
you dated someone essentially last night. I mean, if you're
Date.
talking
I had a
to,
coffee with a friend who's just a friend. But that was my other question. Can girls and guys just
but
be
if you're
friends?
calling, but I'm going to call that a date. I'm not. I know you're not in a relationship. I understand that,
No.
but I'm going to call that a date because you two planned and spent intentional time alone together. It sounds like, and
But
you
in Sweden, it doesn't mean anything in Sweden. And that's
yeah,
what I've had to learn for myself is to not put an expectation on a guy, to just see him as a brother in Christ. Like one of my pastors said, like just see guys as brothers in Christ and then like give the rest to him
that
because
is a good
if
point. That's a good point. I mean,
yeah,
I think, I mean, maybe, well, maybe the rest of the time you're in Sweden, you might say, if you would like to be alone with me, you know, I only do that with people who are able to express a desire to get to know me, um, you know,
on a deeper level.
yeah, with marriage as a backdrop to this conversation. Um,
Yeah.
Again, we're not, the point isn't to say I'm berserk and you need to marry me next month, but the point is
Right.
like you don't get, just think about, kind of like a high profile coach or business consultant or something. They don't just have a one-on-one session with somebody unless there's something intentional going on or that person's paying,
Right.
or you know what I'm saying, so a part of their
Yeah, and I
program or whatever. And so
yeah.
in a way you can kind of up your value by saying, look, I am uh, I'm my one-on-one time is only for intentional people. I would love to hang out with you in a group though, if that's kind of the public level, um, and
And I think hanging out in groups first is a good way to get to know people without the
yeah, you can kind
pressure
of
that it
get,
has
yeah,
to
I mean,
be
you can
something.
kind of get that. I think that, to me, that's like the
Yeah.
line. I love the group things, and those are
Yeah.
fun. But if a guy's going to say, hey, let's have coffee, or a girl's going to say, which
Mhm.
I love, by the way, that, but both parties need to kind of have a sense, hey, we're having a date here, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But we're getting to know each other for the purpose of exploring marriage. And
Right.
I'm still friends with people that I went on dates with. I mean, or they're married to friends of mine, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful. It's not, like, it's when we treated each other kindly and respectfully, and it was a great
Yeah.
experience.
Because
So
and I would just like to say something on behalf of women and all girls out there that
go
I
ahead.
know because
Yeah.
I am one is that I think for women, I really it doesn't matter what country you're in. I honestly think for women, if you spend a lot of one-on-one time with a guy,
Mhm.
you're gonna start putting your emotions there. And I think so. No, what happened? Hmm. Hmm. I don't know what happened.
Hey, no worries, no worries. Yeah, you're saying something to women.
Yeah, I think as women, especially I think anywhere in the world, I think, obviously we have a desire to be cherished and loved, which we should first and foremost find in Christ. And I think with any two people in a relationship, you can't learn to love someone else until you can love yourself,
Yeah,
until you can see yourself with God's love.
that is a very good point. That's a very good point, and it's there's work that needs to be done sometimes before people are ready. I know I carry sort of a big pro marriage banner, but it is important for people to understand there's some work to do on your own. I mean, ideally, that work is done early in someone's life, and they can get that foundation and know the Lord, and sort of have that readiness. But it does happen at later points for certain people, and
Because I think to love somebody else, you have to love yourself.
Yeah, that
And
is a very good point. Yeah, you're right. You have to appreciate the way the Lord has made you to be, and be at peace with your past. I do talk a lot about that, and
and I think for women, we so often see a guy that maybe we're attracted to or that we like, and we want to automatically put them in this marriage box.
mhm.
And I think we need to be careful as well not to put them there, or not to
Yeah,
make marriage an idol, or
it's hard. Yeah, yeah,
because I think we so often do that as women, wherever we are in the world, whatever country we're from,
yeah,
we
yeah.
automatically have this box in our head rather than focusing on actually getting to know the person for who they are.
That's a very good point. Yes, we have to, in a way, hold back some of our emotions or our excitement, enough to be in control, and make, really investigate their heart. I think that's a big deal.
and,
Like,
and not to prejudge someone either,
yeah,
to give
yeah.
someone.
Oh, that's.
I was listening to something today about, we like to make these checklists as Christians
Mhm.
on, what kind of guy we want and how they should look, and,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
they should be. And I think, we might end up with somebody that we never expected.
That
And I
that
think we need to give people the time of day. I think we need to see people with God's heart and to get to know them, and then
Yeah,
just see what God does rather than making a judgment too quickly.
yeah. That is a very good point. And often, I mean, I know people make judgments quickly based only on, physical appearance, and sometimes have extremely inflated standards, and, because of our Photoshop culture and things like that.
Yeah.
Totally,
And our
totally.
consumerism culture, because
Yeah,
America is very consumeristic. We want to have at times a consumeristic mind on, we need to have this, and this, when
yeah,
actually it's just, is this person pursuing Christ? Do they have the
yeah,
same heart that I have for Christ? That
yeah.
is the ground for a good marriage.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, that is true. Um, well, I might add to that maybe some physical attraction, and some,
Oh yeah, that's important.
some of the life skills that come with maturity, and things like that. But you're right, though. I mean, if that's not there, that's a recipe for despair, disaster, and if the Christian faith is there, and if um, yeah, yeah. I mean, you touched on something. I mean, I'll wind this wonderful interview down, but I mean, you touched on something that's very hard to describe. Maybe it's something you could even write on. How do we pursue something with passion, as a desire that the Lord has given us, without making it an idol? And I
Yeah.
know that comes up a lot in conversations that I have. And sometimes the Christian response is to sort of minimize the desire, because, well, we don't care to make something an idol. But I'm like, but this is a desire, though, that, like, it wouldn't go away when I try to minimize the desire to get married. I mean, I didn't succeed in
And there's nothing wrong with
trying
that
to force
desire. God
myself.
put
Yeah, He put that there. I
He
mean,
put that desire from the very beginning when He
yeah,
created Adam and Eve. And so
yeah,
divorced,
yeah. He loves that.
widowed, single, we want to have a partner because that is
Yeah.
a spiritual desire that God gave us.
Yes, 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 exactly. I mean, so it's like, let's pursue that with the right amount of balance. Our relationship with Christ, being that balance, maybe that kind of gives us a peace that, if this person isn't the right one, then somebody will. It's kind of like we have this enduring hope that prevents us from that can really help prevent us from making bad decisions or hasty decisions, and we can enjoy the Lord along the way, every step of the way, and I did have wonderful opportunities as a single person, and that I'll always cherish, where I got to do ministry and unique things, and spend time with male friends, and help other people with their relationships along the way. So it really is a joy.
I think as long as we're chasing after Christ, and my sister, her husband's a pastor, and
Oh, wow,
he's like, yeah, he's like, he's like, because sometimes I sit there honestly, and I'm like, Lord, in a Bridget Jones moment, I'm like, there is nobody for me. Like, I just don't see the hope of marriage in my life again.
Yeah.
But then I think, like, the thing is, if as long as we run after Christ, as long as
Yeah.
He's first, and we're running the race that He has for us, we have to run our race. We can't run someone else's race. We have to run in our purpose towards Christ, and then eventually there's going to be somebody running next to us that he, you know, that he will design to be there.
I like that. I like that metaphor. That's good. Yeah, that is good.
Yeah.
You see who's around you, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
and
you're like,
maybe
who's running by me, and oh, they're cute.
Who's running by me? And maybe give them a nudge if they're a little slow. You know, give them a healthy little minor prompt. I'll close with this cool story. This good friend of mine, a female, was one of the worship singers at a church we were serving at, and she was sort of on a pedestal in a sense. She's very, very attractive and had this beautiful voice. And so a lot of guys just sort of stayed away from her almost out of intimidation.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, she desired to be married and all those things. And one of my friends had some interest in her, and a guy friend, he's kind of, you know, hovering around her one night after she'd finished her singing set. And, but he didn't talk to her. He was kind of talking to everyone else around her and sort of getting closer and closer in this social scene. And he got pretty close, but again, still didn't directly speak to her. And she sort of turned and she said, "Oh, are you waiting to talk to me?"
Nice.
And she sort of brought him in, and then he was like, "Well, yes, I was." And kind of like confessed his interest right then and there.
Oh,
and,
cute.
You know, they're married, and it was like he was moving towards her, and she was really kind of holding her ground, but she kind of extended a little gracious help, you know, at a key little moment. And so, you know, we always kind of joke about that. You know, "Oh, are you waiting around to talk to me?" And so maybe you'll have some moment like that. It's been a pleasure to visit with you, Alicia, and I'm so glad we could connect. And I'll post a link to Refining Hope in the show notes, and all of this will go live once I do a few more interviews. And God bless you and all that you're doing, and your purpose and your journey as a woman. You know, seeking your man and your future family. So
yeah, that'll be interesting.
Hey, you know, paint this awesome picture. I mean,
yeah.
So it says dream. I mean, make your list and know that, you know, the Lord may shake it up, but He gives you the freedom to make that list. Jennifer, my wife, will say that I fulfilled everything on our list except I don't play the guitar. And that was a big sadness. Actually, no.
Well, you can learn. You can learn guitar.
I know I can learn, and I don't have perfect teeth, so.
Oh well, that doesn't mean anything in Europe.
I know, so. a little bit superficial, but I guess both of those, with enough money and time, can be corrected.
Yeah, but probably in America.
Anyway, well, it's great to talk to you, and we'll stay in touch.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, ask me a question.
Do you cut the podcast? Do you cut and piece it together?
Yes, I can. I will.
Okay.
Do you have and especially with the audio will be, you know, an edited form of our discussion. What, is there a part you'd like to trim?
Maybe just the first part about my friend, because I know if he listens to that, he'll be freaked out.
Your friend who you had coffee with or whatever? Recently?
Yeah, because I actually, do you have like 2 minutes? Can I just get
go
your
ahead.
advice? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is so awesome to have a guy's advice. So, okay, after my divorce, like, there was this other guy named Anton who was like a hippie, lived in his trailer, who tried to, like, because I'm American, so I'm exotic here, so a lot of guys were like trying to go after me, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And Anton was like, he's not a Christian, and he just wanted sex, and you know, I witnessed to him. He tried to get me drunk. Like, it was just like, so that was kind of a hard time, but nothing happened, and I held my, you know, ground. I was like, no. But then at work, like, this really nice guy came kind of into my life, and he was a really strong Christian and worship leader, youth leader. And so he asked me, we went for a coffee. I asked him out for coffee. We went for a coffee. He asked me to sing with him at his church. So we did worship together. So he would come to my house, and we would go on a walk, and then we'd have coffee and practice worship like 4 or 5 times.
Nice.
And I really liked him. Like, I formed an emotional attachment to him.
Yeah.
And but when we met, he said, I want to get to know you without expectation and without any hope.
Oh, well, that sounds
But
odd. Without any hope.
I,
What a terrible word.
yeah,
I know.
like, yeah, but I really want to get to know you. And, don't worry, I'll contact you and I'll get to know you. And like, I want to get to know you. And so I said, well, okay, but I can't say there's a closed door because there's not.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but it just all went horrible. And like, we had a talk, and as soon as I kind of was like, could this be more than friends? He was like, no, I can't see you in my head. I can't see us together in my head. And then he was like, I wanted to get to know this other girl. So then like he kind of got to know her, but they're just like friends. And and so it just got really weird, and it was really sad because I really like him. And so he was over last night, and we were talking, and like I had seen him at work, and he completely blanked me and ignored me. And then I saw him at youth group, and he ignored me. And then he sent me a message saying like, I'm really ashamed, and I'm sad that I ignored you. And I said, well, come over and like let's talk about it. And I thought like, oh, I wonder if he liked me or because I'm leaving. Like I don't like he said he was confused, and then he was more confused because he doesn't want to be known as a flirt. So he ignored me because he didn't want people thinking that there was like something between us, or he didn't want me thinking that he liked me. But he stayed here for 3 hours, and we had coffee, and we talked really deep spiritual like conversation. And he's still working a lot through with his ex and what happened and why they didn't work out. And like we both agree, like I don't know that he can see himself married. I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself, so I don't know that he can see himself getting married, because that's a big responsibility to love and cherish someone. And I think maybe he doesn't know if he can do that well.
Wow. Okay.
But this is just between us.
Well, yeah, right. Well, it sounds like an amazing scenario to discuss, and I'm glad you all got in touch. It sounds like he has an attraction. It sounds like he has a little bit of a hindrance in expressing interest towards a woman in public, maybe because of the Christian setting, maybe because there's other people around and may or may like him, or who knows.
He doesn't want people to think he's a flirt. So he ignored me because he didn't want people thinking that he liked me.
Interesting. I actually think this is one of the ways the enemy sort of distorts the Christian community by making it seem like showing interest in a woman is somehow a negative thing, or makes someone seem like they're a player,
like a flirt. I mean, he says that he thinks girls and guys can be friends without feelings.
I think you can really help him. I mean, I definitely don't like some of the phraseology used, without hope or whatever, but you can basically cut through a little bit of the verbal confusion and say, are you ready, in a general sense, are you ready to pursue your wife? What do you need to do in order to pursue your wife? I
know he's not, because he says he has a bad self-image and he needs to work on that first. And he said he's still working on things from his last relationship and why they went wrong. And he said he doesn't know if he can be married because he doesn't know if he can he doesn't know if he can confirm his wife enough in the Lord, or assure her enough in her faith. He doesn't know if he can be that guy that can sacrifice for a wife. And he says he has no attraction to me other than a friend.
Well, I mean, okay.
Which I find hard to believe, which sounds conceited, but it's not meant to sound like that.
No, I know what you mean. You can sort of sense when someone's attracted to you and drawn to you or whatever. And I mean, I know it sounds.
But if he said, I can't see us together in my head, like I have 2 months here and I don't know what to do. And like, I'm leaving kind of liking him, and we agreed we were just friends.
It's certainly understandable to, have sort of a heart pull towards somebody, even if there may not be a great candidate at the moment or something, or be reciprocating. But you definitely need to not grant him much access to you until he's ready to fundamentally pursue a wife and reaches a state of, you know, peace or equilibrium spiritually. I mean, I know it does take a little bit of courage. Who are any of us to think we can take care of one of God's precious daughters, you know? But at some level, we have to say, with your help, Lord, I can do that. You know, you are calling me to do that. I mean, so it sounds like he's maybe close to that point, but maybe isn't there. And if he's not, you know, either if he's truly not attracted to you, or he's not, I guess, mature, confident enough to admit that, he needs to decide to discover that, or he needs to work on that himself. So I would be really friendly and encouraging. This is actually a moment where a lot of women, I think, head down the right road, but they do it in a negative way, or in an off-putting way. They draw the line and they set a boundary. That's the good thing. But then they're sort of they let their disappointment, you know, they sort of project their disappointment back onto the male, and when
like
you can
then
be
cut all contact when you can still be.
Yeah, or say just kind of rude things, or just kind of be, you know, just kind of be.
I'm definitely not that person. I'm way too nice.
So you sound really nice. So what I do, your challenge is probably you need to be a little bit more tough and a little bit more of a boundary setter, but still be super encouraging. Just be like, you're going to make a great husband. Like, solve your stuff, get a mentor, read an X book. I mean, you know, if you're ready to pursue your wife, number one, and you feel attracted to me comprehensively, you know, mentally, spiritually, physically, then contact me. And if I'm available, I'll talk to you. If not, I'll tell you I'm not available. So, I mean, you know.
Well, because the thing is, I think he would say he's not attracted to me, but I feel a bit prejudged because we only had like 5 puppies, but
Five puppies? That's a lot of puppies.
We had 5 puppies. And the first time he came, he stayed from 3 to 11 p.m. and said, I really like talking to you, but I don't want you to have hope.
He's gotten a little too much, honestly, from you. I mean, I know.
Yeah, because maybe it's emotional validation. I don't know.
I know you benefited too, but I mean, he got a lot of, you know, fun and companionship just from visiting, and I'm sure he was sitting there attracted to you because he would have left, and gone somewhere else. I mean, I didn't have 3-hour coffees with a woman I wasn't attracted to, you know. So, and I can tell very quickly if I'm, you know, I feel like human beings can tell really quickly if they're attracted to somebody. What I had to figure out with my wife Jennifer, I knew immediately I was attracted to her. I just had to figure out, did she have the heart, and, you know, do we have the overall compatibility and readiness? And that's what, you know, we quickly figured out. And then we had to work through a few things about our coming together. And, you know, I was 28, she was 25. And so then we were engaged. So yeah, if you draw a boundary, you're going to be a totally empowered dater. I mean, if you say, look, you know, you're awesome. Like, you affirm him, write this cool email, and just be like, you come say hi to me in public. I mean, this is nothing weird, but no more puppies until you know, get this going, because I'm a person on a mission. At least in this relational area of your life, you were on a mission, and so the only people who get to fill your spot are, you know,
like I don't know how to leave it when I leave the country, because I know like that doesn't necessarily close all doors, but
listen, I see there's an emotion, and obviously you also have a kind of this undergirding emotion of leaving Europe and your life there, and memories that you have there with.
And leaving means that I have to give the chance of him to God. Like, I can't control it.
Yeah, you do. And so here I am, the super kind of a little bit aggressive marriage proponent, saying this is the moment to actually say, I'm going to hold a boundary here, because this person, you've really kind of given this guy a chance, and he needs to regroup a little bit, and then come back or not come back. But you need to pursue, you know, your marriage pursuit path is keep on walking, and see if he catches back up. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, that's
hey,
actually a good point.
I'm sorry. Well, you know, I was a little, wasn't quite ready. I got myself ready. You know,
Yeah.
you inspired me to get myself ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so I think this is the magic. This has to be in the podcast because I mean, this is the stuff that women out there need to hear. If women start kind of doing this one little tactic here, an encouraging boundary setting moment, I'm going to write more on this. So
yeah, because I think as women we want to lower our boundaries.
Yeah, don't lower. I mean,
because it lowers it shows that we don't value ourselves, but we want to lower our boundaries
value
because
yourself.
we want to be accepted or we want to be loved, and sometimes we need to just say like, hey, you know, yeah, I can't give you my emotions and I can't give you my time just to make you feel good about yourself because I'm saving that for somebody who really wants to invest in me.
That's right. Or to kind of help you along. You know, you can give like high fives and encouragement to guys in a group setting, you know, and just, you know, help them get a little bit of a you know, a confidence boost, but they don't get the alone time. It's almost like you've mastered protecting your physical purity, but you might need to, you know,
emotionally
protect your emotional purity, and it's a different thing, you know. And once those two things come together, you know, you're just, it's like, just think about anyone who's very focused on something, a salesperson or a politician or whatever. They're only spending time with people who kind of meet the path that they're on. You know, a political candidate's only meeting people who might potentially vote for them. Or
that's true. Yeah, that's a really good
a salesperson's going to visit companies that might buy their product or at least seem to have a need or a desire. So, and if that person, if they discover there's not a great opportunity or connection or potential, they'll probably just go on to another client and keep on going and keep on. And there's this kind of slightly emotionless idea here. You're on a search here. Yeah, I know there's romanticism and sentimentalism, and it's sad sometimes when we don't connect with somebody. And I had all of those moments, and it all just kind of goes away, you know. I mean, just when you find your person. And anyway,
it'll be interesting to see how my life turns
we're gonna have
out.
to have another podcast that'll update people on your particular pursuit and kind of how this, you know, this particular interaction turns out. You know, 6 months. Let's just see. I predict you'll be in a totally different place. Probably not in communication with this particular person. That's my little attempt at prophecy, and there'll be new people. So.
But can you leave out the thing about the guy that I talked about? Because I might put like the podcast online, and I don't want him to hear it. Like, I don't want him to hear the first part about us having a coffee. It will just burn. It will burn a bridge of friendship, I think. Because he's a very private person.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe take out the part about.
And we might even not. It might even be a month and a half before any of this is released anyway. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, thank you so much.
Will you just send me an email when is it just going to come out on like your website?
No, I will totally. No, because I'd love for you to do that, and it'll be good and exciting for all of us. So you bet. We'll be in touch, and blessings to you. Thanks so much, Alicia.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, have a great day.
Hopefully when I write my book, you can read it.
You bet. Yes, you bet. And I'm gonna send you an electronic copy of my First 30 Days book, which is all about starting a new relationship.
That'll be good when I go to America.
All right. Well, we'll see you soon. Okay.
Okay, have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.